Listen closely, my friends. Have you ever said something in the heat of the moment that you instantly regretted? Have you ever let a rude comment from a stranger or a passive-aggressive text from a coworker completely ruin your entire day? Or maybe you've laid in bed at 2 a.m., your heart pounding, replaying an argument in your head, feeling completely hijacked by your own anger, anxiety, or frustration. If you have, you know exactly how exhausting it is to feel like a slave to your own feelings. We live in a world that tells us to follow our hearts and let our emotions guide us. We are taught that if we feel something strongly, it must be true, and we must act on it. But if you let your emotions drive the car, you are going to crash. The ancient Stoics, men like Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca, knew a profound secret about the human mind. They knew that you are not your emotions, you are the observer of your emotions. And more importantly, they knew exactly how to take back the steering wheel when your feelings try to take over. Today, I am going to show you how to have true control over your emotions using Stoic philosophy. And let me be very clear right from the start. Controlling your emotions does not mean suppressing them. It does not mean becoming a cold, unfeeling robot. It means feeling the emotion, understanding it, and then choosing how to respond, rather than just blindly reacting. Here are the 7 Stoic rules to master your emotional mind. Rule number 1. Master the Stoic pause, the gap. The biggest reason we lose control of our emotions is speed. Something happens. Someone insults you, you get cut off in traffic, you get a frustrating email, and your brain instantly fires off a reaction. You yell, you send an angry text, you slam the steering wheel. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus taught that between what happens to you, the stimulus, and what you do about it, the response, there is a gap, a tiny, invisible space of time. Most people live their entire lives without ever noticing that gap. They go straight from stimulus to reaction. But the Stoic lives in that gap. When you feel a strong emotion rising in your chest, force yourself to pause. Take one deep, slow breath. Count to 3, look the person in the eyes or just stare at your phone screen and do absolutely nothing for 3 seconds. In that tiny pause, you take the power away from your primal, emotional brain and give it back to your logical, rational brain. You remind yourself, I do not have to react right now. I can choose what I do next. That simple pause is the difference between a reaction you will regret and a response you will be proud of. Rule number 2. It's not the event that upsets you. It's your story about it. This is the most important concept in all of Stoic philosophy. Imagine 2 people are stuck in the exact same traffic jam. The first person is furious. They are gripping the steering wheel, cursing, their blood pressure is spiking, and their whole morning is ruined. The second person is calm. They turn on a podcast, relax into their seat, and accept that they will be a few minutes late. The event is exactly the same. The traffic jam didn't change. So why are their emotional reactions completely different? Because the first person is telling themselves a story. This is unfair. People are so stupid. Why does this always happen to me? My day is ruined. The second person is telling themselves a different story. Traffic is heavy today. I can't control it. I might as well use this time to listen to something interesting. Epictetus said, men are disturbed not by things, but by the view which they take of them. Your emotions are not caused by what happens to you. They are caused by the meaning you assign to what happens to you. When you feel a negative emotion rising, ask yourself, what story am I telling myself right now? If you change the story, you change the emotion. You cannot control the traffic, but you have 100% control over the story you tell yourself about the traffic. Rule number 3. Strip away the adjectives. Stick to the facts. When we are emotional, our brains love to exaggerate. We use heavy, dramatic language that fuels the fire. Think about the last time you were mad at someone. You probably thought, he was incredibly rude and disrespectful to me. The Stoics practiced a technique of stripping away the emotional adjectives and looking only at the raw objective facts. What actually happened? The fact is, He did not say hello to me when I walked into the room. That is the fact. Everything else, he was rude, he doesn't respect me, he's a jerk, is just your opinion. It is a story you added on top of the fact. Marcus Aurelius practiced this constantly. He would look at the things that annoyed him and describe them in the most boring, clinical way possible. A fancy feast is just the dead body of a pig. A fine wine is just fermented grape juice. When someone upsets you, strip away the drama. Look at the bare facts. They spoke loudly. They didn't reply to my text. They took my parking spot. When you look at the cold, hard facts without the emotional dressing, the anger instantly loses its fuel. It becomes much easier to stay calm. Rule number 4. Treat emotions as data, not directives. We are taught that emotions are commands. If you feel angry, you must attack. If you feel fear, you must run. If you feel sad, you must withdraw. The Stoics viewed emotions differently. They viewed them as data, information. Think of your emotions like the dashboard lights in your car. If the check engine light comes on, you don't panic and jump out of the moving car. You don't smash the dashboard. You simply look at the light and say, "Oh, the car is telling me something needs attention." When you feel a surge of anger, don't let it drive the car. Instead, look at the dashboard. Ask yourself, why am I feeling this? What is this anger trying to tell me? Maybe you are angry because a boundary was crossed. Maybe you are anxious because you are unprepared for a meeting. Maybe you are sad because you are lonely. Acknowledge the feeling. Say out loud, "I am feeling angry right now." By simply naming the emotion, you separate yourself from it. You are no longer the anger. You are the person observing the anger. Once you have the data, you can make a logical decision about what to do next, rather than blindly obeying the feeling. Rule number 5. The view from above. Zoom out. When we are caught up in a strong emotion, it feels like the end of the world. A bad comment on social media feels like a public execution. A fight with a spouse feels like the end of the relationship. Our emotions shrink our perspective until the problem is all we can see. The Stoics used a mental exercise called the view from above. When you are feeling overwhelmed by an emotion, close your eyes and imagine zooming out. Imagine yourself floating up above your house, then above your city, then above the clouds. Look down at the earth from space. Look at how small you are. Look at how small the person who upset you is. Look at how small this specific moment is in the grand timeline of the universe. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Think of the whole universe of matter and how small your share. Think of the whole of time and how small and brief your portion of it." When you zoom out, the problem doesn't disappear, but it shrinks down to its actual size. You realize that this traffic jam, this rude email, this awkward conversation, it really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. The emotional intensity fades and your rational mind takes over again. Rule number 6. Practice voluntary discomfort. You cannot learn to control your emotions in the heat of the moment if you have never practiced controlling them in the cold light of day. If you live a life of total comfort, perfect temperature, endless entertainment, instant food delivery, zero friction, your emotional muscles will atrophy. The moment something slightly uncomfortable happens, you will shatter. Seneca, one of the wealthiest men in Rome, would periodically practice poverty. He would eat the cheapest food, wear the roughest clothes, and sleep on the hard floor. He did this to train his mind. He wrote, "Rehearse for adversity in times of security." You need to intentionally introduce small discomforts into your life to build emotional calluses. Take a cold shower. Fast for 16 hours. Leave your phone in another room for 3 hours. Have a difficult conversation you've been avoiding. When you voluntarily choose to be uncomfortable, you prove to your brain that you can survive it. You build the emotional muscle. Then, when life throws an involuntary discomfort at you, like a flat tire or a sudden bill, you don't panic. You don't lose control. You just handle it because you have already rehearsed for it. Rule number 7. Accept reality instantly. Amor fati. A massive amount of our negative emotions come from arguing with reality. We look at something that has already happened and think, this shouldn't have happened. This is unfair. I wish things were different. But things are different. The event has already occurred. Arguing with reality is like screaming at the rain to stop falling. It doesn't stop the rain. It just makes you wet and miserable. The Stoics practiced a concept called amor fati, which means love of fate. They didn't just accept what happened, they embraced it. Epictetus said, "Don't seek for everything to happen as you wish it would, but rather wish for everything to happen as it actually will happen, and your life will be serene." The moment something goes wrong, the moment you feel that spike of frustration, force yourself to say, "Okay, this is what is happening. I accept it." Stop wishing the past was different. Stop wishing the other person was different. Look at the reality right in front of you and ask, given that this has happened, what is the best, most rational thing I can do right now? When you stop fighting reality, the emotional storm instantly calms down. You move from a state of helpless frustration to a state of empowered action. If this video gave you a new way to look at your emotions, do me a favor. Share it with someone who struggles with anger, anxiety, or overthinking. Let them know that they have the power to take back control. And if you want to continue building a resilient, peaceful, and unbreakable mind, make sure you subscribe to the channel. We are building a community of people who choose wisdom over chaos every single week. Until next time, guard your mind, master your emotions, and let your actions speak. Sculpture for new Stoic wisdom every single week.